first, thank you again for asking me to come back and speak again here. This is a joy and a treat for me to be able to speak about Gene Goldkette and his connections to Marshall County there, especially the Plymouth and La Paz area. So very, very excited about that. The first time I was here online was talking about the early days of when Gene Goldkette was growing up around the area there in the early 1910s. And then we pretty much worked through the 1910s up to where we're at today. And so when we finished the first session, it was brought up to do another one, but talk more about his connections in Detroit, which is where he really made a name for himself and really set his musical roots with the bands that he was organizing. So that's what we're going to focus on today. I do have my comment section open on my screen. So if anybody has questions or comments that they want to share during the talk, feel free to do that. I'll take questions too that are going to be popped up. I know last time there were some questions, so feel free to do that. But I'm right here in Davenport, Iowa, which is the hometown of Bix Beiderbecke. One of these days, I will make it back to Plymouth and to Marshall County just so I can see the Goldkette area again. And but again, I'm happy that everybody was able to come here today and have a good time with this talk about Gene Goldkette. So we're going to pick up again where we left off, which is about the late teens. I'm going to start about 1918 and 1919 here. And I'll try to do some of these screen shares for you as well. That way, you're able to see the pictures that I've been collecting now for the last 20 some years. And this is kind of the Cliff's Notes version because I could really go in deep on all these details. But for now, we're just going to keep it nice and simple and just have some fun here with the history. So the first image I'll start with here, hopefully that this pops up okay. All right, so hopefully everybody can see this image okay. This is where it all began for Gene Goldkette in 1920. This was his very first orchestra, and it's called Gene Goldkette Orchestra at the Hotel Lasalle Roof Garden. This was in Chicago. He was making rounds again with being in Plymouth and La Paz. He could make trips to Chicago very easily. And a lot of music, of course, jazz was a hustle and bustle in Chicago, but you have to admit that there's a lot more music to offer in Chicago than there was in Plymouth back in those days in around 1920. And same thing goes here for Davenport. Even today, there's a lot more music in Chicago than there is in Davenport. It's always a hustling and bustling city that way. And so this is where Gene Goldkette got the start for his first orchestra. And he had just been honorably discharged from the Army for serving in World War I. And so now he had gained citizenship and could now go out and start getting work around the United States here, preferably in the Midwest. So he went to Chicago and formed the outfit that you see here. And he's at piano, and I just want to remind everybody that. So Gene Goldkette is the piano player here. And the saxophone player that's down on the end there, he did a lot of work in Detroit as well with him. But then you also see string sections. So you see cello and two, it looks like violin, probably viola, and then a xylophone in the back as well. So it's like, oh my gosh, that's really neat. But the saxophone player, his name is Dwayne Sawyer, and he actually led a saxophone ensemble. And Gene had him in the group at this time because not too many years before this, Gene and Dwayne Sawyer did some recordings for the Jeanette label in Richmond, Indiana. And it was just saxophone and piano. When you hear it, Gene sounds phenomenal on the piano. The saxophone could put you to sleep in 2 seconds with how he's playing. But there's some neat sides, and I believe that some of them may be available on YouTube for you to listen to. But that's image number one with how we're going to start today. So you're going to, I'm not too technologically savvy, I should say. So you're going to see me sharing screens and coming back to my picture and all this here. But then I'm also going to have pictures up and ready to go that will show what we're going to be doing here. So, all right, make sure I got everything set here. Okay, so I should have the next one ready to go. And this is what we are going to be talking about today, the Greystone Ballroom and Gene's connection here in Detroit. So this photo is very appropriate for today because we had a small snowstorm here in Davenport. So seeing that on the ground, it's like, okay, this is now bring me back home. So there we are, the Greystone Ballroom, which is located at Woodward and Canfield in Detroit. And Woodward, we're actually facing north in this photograph. if we were to turn around 180 degrees, we'd be facing south right towards the downtown area of Detroit. But this ballroom is located on the west side of Woodward. And as you can see there, dancing year-round Detroit's Greystone Ballroom and Gardens, the Greystone. And this was Detroit's premier ballroom. And you have to imagine that you can kind of see the city block there. This was a 5-story building. So it wasn't some small ballroom that sometimes we see around the areas with the curved roof. This was a grand ballroom for the day. And there were tram tracks that ran up and down on each side of the street. So the tram would actually stop right in front of the Greystone, drop off the dancers that wanted to go and have a good time. And then they could just walk right in, pay admission of about 75 cents to hear the band and dance for hours. So whoosh, that'd be great to pay that these days. So, but there we are, the beautiful Greystone Ballroom in its heyday in the 20s there. So as Gene was getting around to playing, he wanted people to know again that this was his ballroom. And so what he did, he made sure of it by having his name right on the front of the ballroom there, Gene Goldkette's Greystone Ballroom. So that's what you would have seen when you would have jumped off the tram there. You would have seen that ballroom facade right there. And it would have, and those lights did light up. And so you have to imagine like what Broadway looks like at night. They were all flashing and it was all lit up so people knew where to find the Greystone. And that big sign, the Greystone that's on the front part of the building there too, that would also light up in lights. So you could see it for quite a ways away there, which was, again, really exciting. And if you hear me getting excited or getting ramped up about a lot of this, this music and the history still gets me excited today, even 20 years into doing this. There's always something I'm finding that's neat and creative about it, but just overall exciting to share. So this is from the looking south. I'm going to give you this image here so you can check this out. Again, a lot of fun sharing the images here. So this is what it looked like on the other side of the Greystone Ballroom, a little bit of a different image, but you can still see they had the same design and painting on the north side of the building there, then facing south. And so again, a grand ballroom, absolutely beautiful. And Gene was very happy to be the owner of this ballroom in Detroit. And so I'm leaving the pictures up just a little bit so you have time to see them, but I think Iris has the video available even after I'm done speaking here. So if you want to go back and even pause it and look at the photos or zoom in on them, you'll be able to do that as well. But as I said, I'm trying to get through as much as I can here so everybody can enjoy some of this wonderful history that we have about Gene Goldkette. All right. Now, a lot of people ask, what does it look like inside of the Greystone Ballroom? And this is what it looked like. It was originally called the $1 Million Greystone. And so you can just see there's where the bandstand was at, the huge dance floor that was there. But just imagine dancing here to music for hours upon hours. And again, one of the best bands in the entire world, the Gene Goldkette Victor Recording Band, as well as McKinney's Cotton Pickers, and then Fletcher Henderson passed through, Duke Ellington passed through here. I mean, if you were one of the top bands of the 1920s, you were out touring when you weren't at your home base, and this would have been the ballroom in Detroit where the bands would have been coming. And Gene made sure that they were visiting there to perform for the dancing crowd in Detroit. But there's a story that goes, since we can actually see the balcony now, because some people, when I tell stories, they don't believe me. One, because of how young I am. But two, they always ask, well, where do you get your information? And I learned a long time ago with this history to make sure that my ducks are all in a row, that I have information and documentation to back up everything that I'm talking about. So as the story goes, during the days there, Jimmy Dorsey and Don Murray had gone into the cloakroom and had stolen 2 raccoon coats. And this is about 1924 when Russ Morgan was leading the band. And the band was on a break and they were just getting ready to go back up to perform. And he's like, well, where's Dorsey and where's Murray at? And all of a sudden he looked up in that balcony section that you see there, and he sees 2 what he called raccoons running around the balcony up there. And that was Jimmy Dorsey and Don Murray. So he's yelling at them to get down because the band's got to start. And it was crazy and chaotic is what the the information was saying. So there's the balcony, so you can see where they were running around with the raccoon coats on, which I thought is a fun story to share, especially with that image there. It's a lot of fun. All right, so now this is a photo that I recently discovered that everybody's going to enjoy, because this is one of the clearest photos that I have ever seen of the Greystone. And I was able to find this photo online, thank goodness. And when I was looking for photos, I found this. And again, the tram tracks are there in the road, but what a shot of the Greystone Ballroom there. And on the front, you can see Gene Goldkette's Greystone Ballroom, so that's still there. But on the side, I believe it says Gift Night, Freddie Bergen's Vagabonds Orchestra. And as we'll see a little bit later, Freddie Bergen had a group that also played inside the Greystone, but they primarily played in the Greystone Gardens, which was located behind the Greystone Ballroom. And a lot of people don't know that there was the Greystone Gardens there. And so it's a kind of a new jazz history lesson for today here. So again, that was one of the clearest photos, and I have that photo here at home, and it's framed, and I absolutely love it, seeing the beautiful Greystone Ballroom. And some people do ask about the history for my band here. We are actually called the Greystone Monarchs, and it's a 10-piece dance band that plays the music of Gene Goldkette, McKinney's Cotton Pickers, Fletcher Henderson, all the groups that were coming through the Greystone Ballroom. And I picked the name Monarchs because of King, royalty. I mean, these were the top bands. The royalty of the 1920s jazz was coming through there. So I love the name the Greystone Monarchs. And so that group has been together for close to 10 years now, which is really exciting. And so we're getting geared up to do some more events this upcoming summer. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. All right, let's keep going with these photos here, because I've got a lot to share. All right, so now we're going to jump to 1922, and this is the very first photo of the Gene Goldkette Orchestra inside the Greystone Ballroom, or at one of the ballrooms around the area, but the first official Gene Goldkette Orchestra. The one that we saw in 1920, that was his smaller group, but this is one that was now doing the hot dance arrangements with having saxophones and trumpets and trombones and a rhythm section there. And so the photo, again, such a fabulous photo of this band. In the center of the photo, we have Bill Krenz, who was one of the, and I think Owen Bartlett, excuse me. And then to his right would be Howdy Quicksell. And then the fourth from the right would be a piano player named Paul Mertz. And second from the right, second from the left would be Doc Riker. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at the right of Owen Bartlett there. Sorry about that. And then you have Ray Lodwig, who is in there. You have Charlie Horvath and Stephen Horvath. Stephen was his father, who played bass, but then decided to get out of it. And then Irish Henry came in on the brass bass, playing that for the band. But again, a great shot from 1922 of the band here. This photo I was able to get from Ricky Riker Bichelle, and that's her father, Doc Riker, that I said is now second on the left when you're looking at the photo now, with the mustache. And Doc was the lead alto player for the Goldkette band for its entire career there. So he was one of the founding members and stayed with the group, which was really exciting. All right, let's see. Having sound issues in audience is what I saw there at 11:03. Snow in Detroit today too. Oh, great. Yeah, yes, snowing everywhere, more or less, around the Midwest region here. All right. So let's jump to another photo here of the band. And I'll keep watching some of these comments when I'm going back and forth between sharing my screen here, just to make sure everything is still going good there. Okay, so here's the band broadcasting WWJ in Detroit, and you have Charlie Horvath at the drums. I always point out the drummer because I'm a drummer, so I always do that. But in the saxophone section on the far right of the photo there, you'll see Doc Riker. And what I love about saxophone sections is that they had an arsenal of horns. They had clarinets, they had oboes, they had baritone sax, they had bass clarinet, they had soprano sax. You even see a trumpet there by Doc Riker. But the saxophone section, if I can name them there, on the far right is Doc Riker. In the middle, for a lot of you jazz history buffs and jazz lovers, we have Jimmy Dorsey right in the middle. Jimmy Dorsey was a member of the Gene Goldkette Orchestra for many years as well. And then the third one in from the right is Don Murray, the great Don Murray. And that's somebody who, if you want some great clarinet and tenor sax playing, oh my gosh, Murray is among the best there. And then in the back row, holding the brass bass or the sousaphone, you see there is Irish Henry. And then the next one to the right in the middle, you actually see the name Bill Rank right above him. There's the great Bill Rank on trombone. And then to Bill's right in the photograph would be Ray Lodwig. And then to his right would be Fred Fuzzy Farrar. And you'll be hearing that name come up a little bit later here. And then on the far left of the photo on the banjo there, you will see Howdy Quicksell. And then the gentleman standing with the violin is Eddie Sheesby, and there's some history again with Eddie Sheesby that I will share as well. Then there's Owen Bartlett at the piano. Paul Mertz played piano with the Goldkette Orchestra, but he was primarily at the Book Cadillac Hotel playing with Goldkette's group there. As the talk goes on, you will see how many bands that Gene Goldkette was in charge of, and that's why it was called the National Amusement Corporation. And when you see this, just imagine trying to run one band, and then when you see the list, that will really add up as well. So that's the band when they would broadcast over the radio, and then they would also go back to the Greystone Ballroom and perform there as well. All right, continuing with photos here. All right, so this is a photo coming up from 1923, November actually of 1923. And it's kind of hard to see because it's a little bit smaller, but November 7th, 1923. This was advertising the radio programs with the Gene Goldkette Orchestra in Detroit over WWJ. And so again, another great shot of the band there being advertised in the local paper to let people know, hey, here's this great band, because they were just starting out. And so, as with anything, it takes people going and supporting and dancing to keep the music going. And there's Gene right in the front. Now, the story is Gene would perform with this group from time to time, but Gene's background primarily is with classical music. But he could still sit down and read a chart and do the style easily on the piano and replicate what Bill Krenz would do, Owen Bartlett, what Paul Mertz could do. He could sit down and do a lot of what they were playing there. So, but he didn't do that often because he was more in his offices taking care of bookings and probably getting musicians secured for gigs, and more the business end of it and not the performance side of it, which is unfortunate because he was an amazing performer, but he wasn't featured that much at the Greystone Ballroom. Now, as I was talking about the performances with Gene Goldkette, and we had talked about this last time, I would like to focus on the Detroit Athletic Club, which is part of the title of the program as well, from the Greystone Ballroom to the DAC, and that stood for the Detroit Athletic Club. Now, this is what the club looked like in the 1920s, and if you were to look at the club today, behind it would be the Tigers baseball stadium. And again, I'm not sure I don't know if it's Comerica Park. I think it's Comerica Park. There's my baseball knowledge for the day. I'm a Cubs fan, so there we go. But I believe it's Comerica Park, and that's where the Detroit Tigers play, which is now located directly behind the Detroit Athletic Club. And to the right on the photo where you see those trees, there's actually a parking ramp now and a little bit of an addition that's been built onto the club as well. The main entrance is closed off. You can only enter on the new entrance, which is on the right side of the photo there where they have the new parking ramp. The main entrance that you see there in the old days was the gentleman's entrance. The entrance on the side of the building was the ladies' entrance. And they still don't do that today, but when you go into the club, you do have to be wearing a coat and I believe a collared shirt. You just can't go in t-shirt and jeans. They do have a dress code because I have been inside the club twice before. Once to tour it from the roof all the way down to the basement and seeing the areas where the Goldkette band had recorded and where Gene had also performed as well with his classical groups. But what a beautiful shot of the Detroit Athletic Club in the 1920s there. And this is where Gene spent most of his time performing when he wasn't in the office booking the jazz groups. This is where he was at because this is where he made his living the most. All right, so when I was at the Detroit Athletic Club, they also had a lot of what they called their magazine or their newspaper, and it was articles that they had. And this one dates back not too many years ago. I'd say about 20, 25 years ago. This is not going back. This isn't from the 1920s. They didn't have font and print like this back in the 20s. but I'm gonna kind of lean in so I can read the description that you have, because you see Gene's picture right there. And it says, band leader Gene Goldkette got his first break at the DAC, where he served as the club's music director during the Roaring '20s. Backed by influential club members, the Jazz King opened the famous Greystone Ballroom on Woodward Avenue. Goldkette's Greystone Orchestra, which recorded its first records at the club, helped launch the careers of such music greats as Bix Beiderbecke, Don Redman, William McKinney, and Jimmy and Tommy Dorsey. Now, the Pontchartrain Room that you see there, that is where it's one believed location that the band recorded. You kind of see the little setup they have off to the right there. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is the gymnasium, and I know we talked about that a little bit before in the last talk. And I have visited both areas. I would tend to think the band recorded in the Pontchartrain Room because the gymnasium is a really big and boomy area where the sound would have probably bled onto the record. This has lower ceilings in the Pontchartrain Room, and this is where I believe the band did make their recording at. And again, a beautiful room. And so it was great to be there when I did visit probably about 15 years ago and see that exact site where the band was at. So again, really exciting. Coat and tie still required. Beautiful place for dinner. Oh, great. So Diane goes there. Well, next time you go there, you can think, okay, this is where Gene Goldkette was the music director of the 1920s. And bring up, I always say, when you're at places like that, bring up that name a lot so that it starts getting in people's ears. And then I would absolutely love to bring my Greystone Monarchs to the Detroit Athletic Club, because I know they do host events there, music events. And I have been trying to get my group into the DAC to perform the true music of Goldkette, as well as McKinney's and some other groups that would be play there. And the band did play at the DAC, which you'll see that coming up here. So that's another reason why I want to get in there and perform. So another location where they had the band performing at, and this is the Book Cadillac Hotel, which this is a photograph from about 1924, a postcard actually. And the band would broadcast from the roof up there, and you can actually see the tower up top. But the band was known as Owen Bartlett's Book Cadillac Hotel Orchestra. And so this fabulous band had Tommy Dorsey in it, had Paul Mertz. They would actually switch some of the musicians from the Greystone band and put that into the Book Cadillac to perform back in the day. And so again, another location, and this hotel underwent a multi-million-dollar restoration and is now owned by the Westin hotel chain. And I was able to tour that hotel once it opened again to see the grand ballroom where the band had performed. Unfortunately, it's all carpet in there now, so you can't, I mean, you could technically cut a rug, but there's not the hard dance floor that we had back in the day. But you can still see the metal ornate work that they have there. Just beautiful. And so they didn't restore it back to what it looked like in the 1920s. That's unfortunate, but I'm just happy the building is still standing and it's still in use, because so many times these days we see buildings getting destroyed and knocked down when they get old and dilapidated, and then nobody wants to put the money into it, unfortunately. So there we are, the Book Cadillac Hotel, which also hosted one of Gene Goldkette's groups. And again, as I mentioned at the start of the program, the way that I know a lot of this is by the research that I do. So here's a menu from the Book Cadillac Hotel that I was able to find. And as it says down there, dinner and supper dancing in Blue Room. And it's in the box at the bottom there. Every evening, Sundays accepted, Gene Goldkette's Dance Orchestra. And this would have been his Book Cadillac Hotel Orchestra. Now, again, as I said, you can go back and check out a lot of the prices that you have here. If you want seafood cocktail, that'd be $1.25. Let's see, fruit cocktail, 80 cents. Entrees, I mean, you've got broiled guinea hen with mushrooms and waffles and currant jelly, $2.65. If everybody would like to take a vote, I'd like to vote this menu in for prices for today. Let's go ahead and adopt that so everybody can have a good meal and save some good money here, especially with how everything is going up in price. That's why I like to bring up a lot of this. So there's milk-fed chicken, broiled half for $1.60. There we go. I could keep going with the menu, but I know this will make everybody hungry. But hopefully you brought some of your food with the brown bag. That'd be great. So you're getting your appetite taken care of there. So, all right. So let's continue on here. Now, also at the Book Cadillac Hotel, he would also have some of his other groups performing there. And here we have Gene Goldkette presents the Detroit Symphony Trio. So he, as I said, he was a classical piano player and was involved with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra very much. And so there you have harp, violin, and cello in daily recitals, 3 to 5 p.m. in the Ballroom at the Book Cadillac Hotel. And so this is the initial recital from December 9th. And a lot of these items that you're seeing come from the Gene Goldkette collection, which are part of the Gene Goldkette Foundation, which is run by Alan Crevor, who is the grandnephew of Gene Goldkette. So it's, again, it's an honor and privilege to know Alan Crevor, and I'm actually, they adopted me as their nephew there because, and actually son is what, I think son is what they adopted me because of all the research I've done on Goldkette all these years. So they gave me a certificate of adoption many, many years ago for all the work I've done on the music of Goldkette here and his life. All right. So, all right. So now we're getting into the Goldkette Orchestra again that played at the Greystone Ballroom. And this is a postcard some of you may have seen before from 1924. Gene Goldkette's Greystone Orchestra, Victor recording artist, WWJ Radio Orchestra, Detroit, Michigan. So there they are right there. And again, we have now Joe Venuti, that's on violin, standing to the right of Charlie Horvath, who is the drummer. And Tommy Dorsey's in the band at this time. We have Bill Rank, you have Jimmy Dorsey. This is a top crew of musicians, incredible musicians. And so this is the band that was going in and recording for the first records in 1924, November of 1924, at the Detroit Athletic Club. But again, an incredible group of musicians making the scene and just blasting onto the scene and having other musicians around the country talk about them and their ability to perform the music so well, but then with such style. And I'm gonna use the word pizzazz that a lot of the bands weren't doing at the time. And a lot of that had to do with the arrangements as well. So again, a great shot of the band there. Okay, so as I mentioned, the Gene Goldkette Foundation, where's that located? Currently, the foundation is located out in the state of Washington. It's actually where Alan Crevor lives, and they're out on the West Coast. There isn't a website for it, and it hasn't been too active as of late, but the foundation is still a 501c3 nonprofit foundation. And they have a lot of history about Gene Goldkette. Again, with that being the family member, they inherited a lot of the memorabilia that was Gene's himself. So that's something neat that I've been able to see a couple different times with them. But again, great question. You could probably still look it up. And Alan Crevor, I know, is on Facebook and always loves to hear from people talking about his great uncle, Gene Goldkette. So feel free to reach out to him if you see him on Facebook there. All right, so I'd mentioned the Book Cadillac Hotel Orchestra, and here is a shot of the Book Cadillac Hotel Orchestra. And you'll see Doc Riker in the front there, and Don Murray. Paul Mertz is at the piano. Bill Rank is in the back. Tommy Dorsey is wearing the round spectacles there, as is Fuzzy Farrar. And so this is the group, because Tommy Dorsey was with the Victor Band, but then got booted out and went to the Book Cadillac Band because that's where the Victor Company wanted to move him because of the attitude that he had, unfortunately. So this is, again, a great shot of the Goldkette Band that was playing at the Book Cadillac Hotel, roughly about 1924-25 there. And they did make a few records as well. You can find those on the Victor label under Owen Bartlett's Book Cadillac Hotel Orchestra, and sometimes it's under Gene Goldkette's Book Cadillac Hotel Orchestra as well. So it's just looking for those particular phrases there. All right, so now we're going to move to the Greystone Orchestra because this is what a lot of people know and recognize with the Goldkette sound. So on the far left, you will see a very young Russ Morgan, and this is in 1924. And then you have Steve Brown so I'm gonna work from left to right in the back row there because everybody is standing except for Chauncey Morehouse, who's behind the drums there sitting. And so you have Russ Morgan that's on the far left, and then to his left, you have Steve Brown, and then Bill Rank and Spiegel Wilcox, who were the trombone players, those two. And then kind of crouched down in the middle there, you have Howdy Quicksell. Right below the mural, the gentleman smiling there is Fred Fuzzy Farrar. To his left would be Lou Longo. who was playing piano with the group. And then you have Doc Riker, who is to his left. Don Murray is to his left, Ray Lodwig, and then Jimmy Dorsey is on the far right of the photograph there. And dead center is one of my musical heroes, Chauncey Morehouse, who I feel is one of the greatest drummers of the 1920s, one of the most creative and influential drummers. And he was a left-handed drummer. That's why you see the snare drum flipped over there. But just look at all of that grand percussion he has. He has the chimes, he's got the timpani, the 28-inch bass drum, the tambourine, the crash cymbals, a lowboy that you kind of see down there, a gong. I mean, incredible setup. And these are all leady instruments. And I'm proud to say that I have the same model instruments. I wish they were Chauncey's. One of them maybe, I don't know. But I played leady instruments exactly like this. I have timpani exactly like that from the 1920s, as well as chimes like that from the 20s. So I've tried to find those instruments over all these years, so I have a setup as close to Chauncey's as possible to play in that same style as him. Now, this is a photo that I was able to get from the collection of Russ Morgan, from his son, Jack Morgan. And again, I'm indebted to him for selling me the photographs from his father's collection. This is the Greystone Band inside the Greystone Ballroom. And so I am honored to have this photo. This is from 1924 here. And that's Russ Morgan sitting right in the front with the baton there, next to Howdy Quixell with the banjo. But pretty much all the personnel are the same of what you saw in the other photograph, except if you look back on the piano, Lou Longo is not there. You will actually see Itzy Riskin, Irving Itzy Riskin at the piano there. And so again, there's Chauncey set up behind him on the drums on the podium, but I can only imagine just dancing to this band for hours and hearing their arrangements and the music. And it's like, and yes, there's no music stands in front of them. They did that for photographs, but they did read arrangements. There's no way that they could memorize over 200 arrangements. So they did read actual arrangements. There's a lot of talk about that with musicians. When bands are on stage at a jazz festival and they're reading charts, sometimes audience members are like, oh, those aren't true jazz musicians because they're not reading charts. That's not the case. Jazz musicians in the 1910s, 20s, 30s, all the way to today, they read charts. And a true jazz musician can read charts as well as not use any music that can play off the top of their head if need be. But there's different styles of groups out there. And in my terms, when you had these guys reading these arrangements, they could just play that music better than any other musicians. And what I wouldn't give to go back in time and hear these guys playing for 4 to 6 hours at a night at the Greystone, playing those hot dance arrangements that were being made by Russ Morgan, then later on by Bill Chalice and other musicians like that. I mean, it would have been phenomenal to have been back in that ballroom in the day to hear them. All right, so how they would advertise the records, I think this is just a neat photograph that won't keep it up too long, but again, from about 1924, Victor would issue these catalogs or like records of the week. And you can actually see Gene Goldkette in each one of those photos. In the orange photo there, you can see him on the bottom row, second from the right. But I love on the left-hand side, you can see Carlton Coon and Joe Sanders from the Coon Sanders Nighthawks Orchestra. So it's like, wow, incredible to see them there. But there's the great photo of Goldkette, which again, they were advertising the record since their first recordings were made in 1924. And then you have another one of those new Victor records by these artists this week. And then there's Goldkette again. And they were making records not every single week. They would go into the studio every now and then when Eddie King, who was with the Victor Company, wanted them to record. And so he would call them in and they'd record in Detroit. They'd record in Camden, New Jersey, a couple different places where they would record, but their first records were made in Detroit. And that's when they had signed the dotted line on the contract to become exclusive Victor recording artists back in the day. All right, let's see what's going on here. Looks like it's, all right, there we go. I think everything's moving now. Just was moving a little bit slower there for a second. Now, some of these photos coming up, I'm only going to keep up, I'm not going to talk that much about them, but over the years, the band would put out sheet music. And whether they recorded these songs is to be known. That they may have made something, but there's no documentation in the archives about that. But like this song, Only You and Lonely Me, there was a stock arrangement that was made of this song back in the day. As you see the lyrics by Ray, I think, Klages, and the melody by Jesse Greer there. But they would put a band photo, a different band photo on these arrangements. And so sometimes what these publishers would do is send the arrangement to the band and say, hey, can you play this arrangement? It's a new one, just to get it out there and let people know about it. Then the listener of the band could go into the local shop, buy the sheet music, go home and play it on their piano. And so this is how they would help promote music. And I do have the stock arrangement of this. And if the band had played it, then I actually have that same stock arrangement that the band had played. But the Goldkette Victor Band would try to play their own special arrangements, which again set them apart from other groups that may just be playing the stocks that you could buy at the store. So that's what made the Victor Band so unique. And again, the instrumentation and the musicians that they had made it a unique group as well. So there's one piece of sheet music. So we'll look at another one here. This one's very common, and I've actually seen this a lot at flea markets and antique stores. There's Yes, Yes in Your Eyes, song lyric by Cliff Friend, and then Joseph Santley there. And so Gene Goldkette's orchestra. So there's, again, a photo like what we had seen before. You've got Paul Mertz on piano, and again, I could go through all the musicians, but we're starting to learn a lot of their names, I think, by now. But again, I love the beautiful artwork on these pieces of sheet music. I mean, you don't find that today. They just slap a picture on there, the title, that's it. But these all were creative Art Deco pieces. And I know there's a lot of people out there, some of you actually with the Historical Society that are watching today, that collect pieces of sheet music for the artwork, as well as possibly for the song, the composer, or for the band picture. There's a lot of opportunity to find sheet music that way. So there was another one, and I get to show you another one here. And this one is a neat cover. It's kind of fun. The title of it is You Gotta Know How to Love. I know the last part got cut out there, but You Gotta Know How to Love. So there's the Goldkette Orchestra, and you see the moon smiling there, and then a couple just like that. And yeah, again, going back in the days of when sheet music, this is what it was. So, and then you had the music publishers that they'd put their sticker, their label on the piece of sheet music as well. I know like Ebel Brothers did that down in the Indiana area there, which a lot of you are probably familiar with Ebel Brothers from the last talk, since I mentioned Gene Goldkette used to walk there and play pianos, and they didn't like him much because of how stern he was as a gentleman. And I still call him a gentleman because he always will be a gentleman to me. When you're running bands and you're leading like I'm doing, you can understand what they go through for a lot of work, and sometimes it can get stressful. So, all right, we're moving along. All right, I'm going to skip ahead. Oh, this is one I think is really beautiful, and I'm going to put it up here because absolutely love my wife, and this is her favorite flower. And this is a beautiful song by Cliff Friend, Where the Lazy Daisies Grow. And I love all the daisies that are on this. And I do have this framed, and I want to have my wife frame it around, actually hang it where she can see this piece with her daisies that she has here in the house. And so this was our flower at our wedding, was the daisy, and I've been with my wife now for 20 years and absolutely love her to death. And she's the most beautiful woman in the world, and just so special to me. And so every time I can find daisies to give to her, I'm constantly giving her daisies and bouquets of flowers, just because I just love her that much, and I know this is her favorite flower and it makes her happy. So there we are, Where the Lazy Daisies Grow. And the Goldkette Band did record this in 1924 at the Detroit Athletic Club. All right, so now two photos coming up here of Gene Goldkette. This is one that I had showed last time, but again, I want to review this because I've been talking about him a lot, and here he is, Gene Goldkette. This is roughly about 1925, 1926. This is a photograph. It's kind of been touched up a little bit. You can kind of see the tint on the photo there. I have this photo framed downstairs, hanging by my Victrola. I have a Gene Goldkette wall, and I have a Chauncey Morehouse wall. And so this is one of the great photos of Goldkette that he would hand out to his musicians that he signed for them. And this is about 1925. And I've got the photograph downstairs with his signature on it like this. And again, I look at it every day. It's like, oh my gosh, here's the signed photo of Goldkette. I cannot believe it. And knowing that it belonged to one of the actual band members too. Oof, it belonged to Bill Rank, which is incredible. His son gave me his father's photo because he knew how much I loved Gene Goldkette. And he said, hey, you'll cherish this photo more than my family will. So please frame it and enjoy it at home. So now this next photo was a newly discovered photo of Goldkette from a few years ago. And I still look at it, and the clarity of it, I mean, just take a look at that. I mean, you can see the pattern in his suit even. That's how clean and clear this photo was. And I believe this was for one of the local papers that took this publicity shot about 1925-26, and he was very famous for the round spectacles, and I do have those as well. I have an original pair from the 1920s. I don't wear them too often, only because they were almost stepped on one time and destroyed. That wouldn't have been good. But again, you can come back and look at this photograph, but I mean, you can see his eyes. I mean, you can look right into his soul there and see the man himself, John Gene Goldkette. And that's somebody who, again, Marshall County should be very proud of. And hopefully over time, there can be more Gene Goldkette history in the museum, and that name just becomes very common in the area. Oh yeah, Gene Goldkette, like around here we mentioned Bix Beiderbecke, and a lot of people know who Bix is, or Louis Bellson across the river. One day, fingers crossed, we can make that happen for Gene Goldkette in the Plymouth area there, which would be exciting. All right, so I'm gonna move on here. There's a couple things. Okay, so as I mentioned before, how Gene had been performing at the Detroit Athletic Club. And so here is that evidence of that. Detroit Athletic Club Entertainment Course, Gene Goldkette's Victor Recording Orchestra and the Revelers. Saturday evening, December 11th, 1926, 8:30 o'clock, DAC Gymnasium. Now, they performed in the gymnasium. That's again why people say, well, that's where they recorded at. Again, there's a lot of speculation out there. The Pontchartrain Room is what, again, we say, but they had it in the DAC because there's no way the Pontchartrain Room could hold a slew of people. The DAC Gymnasium was the perfect place for a performance where that could happen. So then you actually get to see the program, Adoration, which is a song that the group recorded in 1924. And as of recent, that record has surfaced, or like a version of it. Transcription on Indian melodies, Pale Moon, Kashmiri Song on the Waters of Minnetonka, which Goldkette transcribed that himself. Then Hurricane, Novelty for Orchestra, which was by Paul Mertz. There is a stock arrangement of that song. It's a great song. It's one of my favorites from the 20s. And then Waltz selection of popular melodies, excerpts from Rhapsody in Blue, Gershwin. And then On the Road to Mandalay, Goldkette's Victor Recording Orchestra. So the excerpts from Rhapsody in Blue was played by Gene Goldkette. And later on, when Gershwin could not perform with the Detroit Symphony, they called Goldkette, but he turned down playing Rhapsody in Blue because he wanted to play something a little bit more difficult, and that was MacDowell's Piano Concerto No. 1 in A minor. And as you see there, part 3 of the program was the American Concerto, Lento by Scott, but then Andante and Presto movements from MacDowell's Piano Concerto No. 1. And it says orchestra with Gene Goldkette at the piano. Orchestral scores arranged and conducted by VP Coffey. So right there, it shows that Gene was playing the MacDowell even when they did this in 1926, and it was a few years later when he played it with the Detroit Symphony. So he already had it going under the hands, which is great. But again, a neat thing to see is the actual program from the Detroit Athletic Club there. Very exciting. All right, so one thing that Goldkette was doing is advertising this group as much as he could. And so it says, announcing Gene Goldkette's orchestra's Victor Recording Artists Official WWJ Radio Orchestra, also subsidiary units, and we're just getting ready to do that. But at the bottom there it says Gene Goldkette Orchestra's Executive Offices 17 Brady at Woodward Avenue. Telephone Glendale 5660 and 5661, Detroit, Michigan. So people asked, where was 17 Brady Street at Woodward Avenue? That location no longer exists. The hospital is there now because I've actually driven where it should have been at, but the hospital is currently there. But I was able to find, for everybody's enjoyment, a rough photograph of what the building looked like where Gene was at. And this is it, Gene Goldkette's College of Music, which was at 17 Brady Street in Detroit. And you can see the car parked out front there. I don't know if that's Gene's or not. Somebody had asked me that a long time ago. I'm like, I'm not sure. So there's no license plate and Gene's not in it. So we'll just say it's a car for a student that was probably there. But what a beautiful old building that looks to be. And again, a shame that they had to tear it down. But I know that Detroit went through a really tough time and a lot of buildings didn't make it and had to be torn down. But we at least have a photograph that we can go back and look at here to see what the building looked like. All right, continuing on with the photos. This is one that I just posted on my Facebook page, but I love it because of its creativity and everybody can enjoy it. This is when the Gene Goldkette Orchestra was on their New England tour in 1926. Battle of Music with Gene Goldkette and his famous Victor Record Orchestra, and the Paul Whiteman, who's Paul Whiteman of the West, the greatest and most sensation. And I don't have the screen up there where I can't actually see it there. But they were doing battle of the bands with some of the groups that were territory bands out in New England at the time. But right dead center of the photograph, if you see the word Goldkette and the letters K and E, that is Bix Beiderbecke with his hands on the sign, dead center of the photograph there, which I absolutely love that. And to Bix's right is Chauncey Morehouse. And I bring up these two musicians because yesterday, March 10th, was the birthday of the great Bix Beiderbecke, born March 10th, 1903. So he would have been 119 years old. And I'm proud to say that today, Friday, March 11th, is the birthday of the great Chauncey Morehouse, who was born on this date in 1902. So he's celebrating 120 years. And so happy birthday to these two great jazz legends today. All right. Okay, so I had mentioned the National Amusement Corporation, and again, that was part of the title of the program as well. I wanted to say this because I'm going to take a few minutes just to talk about it, and I know we're starting to get close to the end of our time here, so I'm kind of crunching everything. Here is the National Amusement Corporation, offering a complete service in orchestras and entertainers for concerts, dances, shows, conventions, weddings, etc. Exclusive representatives of Gene Goldkette and his orchestra, the Victor Records. Now, as I mentioned, when you're running one band, it is a lot of work to manage, let's say, 14 musicians. Gene Goldkette was in charge of all of these groups with booking them. There's McKinney's Cotton Pickers, Victor Records, Owen Bartlett and his orchestra, Fred Bergen and his orchestra, the Casa Loma Orchestra, Jack McGay and his Society Orchestra. I could go on, the Detroit Athletic Club Orchestra, all of these groups. And then it says there, National Broadcasting, Red, Blue, and Midwest Chain radio networks, WGN, which is in Chicago, WWJ, and WJR, which were in Detroit there. And then attractions featured at, there's all of the places that these groups are playing in and around the Detroit area there. And again, you can come back and look at this. A lot of people love this ad because they're like, oh my gosh, I know that place, or I know that. And you see the Greystone listed on there. But I've been to a lot of these places that are still standing just so I can see what the building looks like itself. And I actually stayed at the Fort Shelby many, many years ago because they had redone that hotel, renovated it, and the book Cadillac wasn't done yet. But he was in Suite 812 and 813 in the Book Tower, which was across the street from the Book Cadillac Hotel. So in Cadillac Square there in Detroit. And again, I'm not fluent on Detroit history, so if any of you Detroiters are listening in as well, you could help correct me on that as well. But again, I love Detroit. I love going there. The city has so much history, and I encourage people to go there and see the history and embrace that jazz history that Goldkette brought to the city so many years ago. All right, so I'm going to keep advancing photos, and I think I'm doing all right for photographs here as I'm watching the time. Oh, I do want to show this because this is a quick postcard, two postcards of what the Book Tower looked like, one colorized and the other one black and white. And so you can actually see this tower when you're driving into Detroit, and this is where Goldkette had his offices at. Again, a beautiful building. I think what would scare me the most is if there's a fire, I'd probably stay inside the building, because when you're driving up, you can actually see the fire escape on the outside back of the building. And oh my gosh, to be that high up and on a metal, I'm already kind of getting vertigo thinking of it right now. Thinking of going down this staircase, no thank you. I'd just try to get down if I could on the inside. But it is a beautiful building, and I know that they've done restoration to this as well in Detroit. But if you ever are driving into Detroit, into the downtown, you will see the Book Tower there, a beautiful building. Book Tower is being restored. It's also the last location of the Greystone Jazz Museum. That's right, Rob. And that's where they had the Greystone Jazz Museum for many years until it wasn't in there anymore. But yep, and I'm glad to hear that's being restored. Great for Detroit for restoring these buildings there. Absolutely love it. All right, now we're getting into what I mentioned before. I'm going to kind of wrap up the program here for the last few minutes, because I had mentioned Chauncey Morehouse. And I want to bring up a picture of Chauncey here because he was a member of the Goldkette Band. And his birthday is one day after Bix's and a year before Bix's. And so this is a close-up photo that was taken of Chauncey Morehouse that was for the leading drum topics. And I'd mentioned all the instruments before. So what they did is they took the photo of Chauncey behind the drums for the leading drum topics. Then they brought in the entire orchestra behind him to take the band group photo at that point. But I love this photo of Chauncey. Yes, you kind of see a crease in the middle there. And the reason for that is I'm going to show you this next photo here, which I took this from the actual leading drum topics back in the day. It's from February of 1926 that you're going to see here. And again, a great shot of Chauncey, and I love the Art Deco work that's on here. And that's why you see the creases. I took it from, this is my original copy of the Leedy Drum Topics. And it says Chauncey E. Morehouse, the E stood for Earl, Gene Goldkette's Orchestra, Detroit, Michigan. It said see page 11. So there was an article and an interview about him. But again, I wanted to talk about Chauncey today because, yes, this is his birthday, and he's as part of the importance of the Goldkette band. And Gene's the one that brought him out because back in the day, it was Charlie Horvath who was playing drums with one hand and then writing checks on the timpani head with the other hand. So they brought out Chauncey Morehouse to perform with the group. And when they did that, the union was there immediately saying, hey, this Chauncey guy, he can't play because he hasn't been in the area long enough. We don't want him taking work from one of our musicians. And so Charlie Horvath, who was doing all this, said, hey, I heard Morehouse is in the audience. And so I brought him up and had him sit in. I loved his playing so much that I decided to hire him right on the spot because I'm too busy doing all this business work. So I need this guy to play, and he's available to play. So they hired him to start playing in the group in 1926. And so that's why I love to show that photo, partly because it's his birthday, but it is Goldkette history. And Gene is responsible for bringing him to Detroit because he had no other groups going on at the time. So Gene had him doing work there. So the great Chauncey Morehouse. So the next photo, these are taken from the Greystone Topics, which was like a newspaper magazine that was issued from Gene Goldkette and his staff. Advertising different events, and this would be given out in Detroit there where people could see what groups are coming to the area. And so this is, it's perfect for today, as everybody was saying, it was snowing in Detroit. Greystone in winter attire. Greystone decorates especially for all its annual events. Here is a picture of the decoration for winter sports night. And so icicles hanging there. I mean, just to dance in there, I'm sure it was just absolutely beautiful. But I don't think a lot of people have ever seen this photograph of Gene's Greystone Ballroom before. And so he was in charge of making all these decisions for what it would look like inside. The bands, I mean, he was in charge of all that. So a very important businessman, but not to take away his musical ability, which was just incredible and phenomenal there. So the next photo, we're just about at the end there. I love showing these photos here. This one is also from the Greystone Topics. And as I mentioned before, Fred Bergen had his Vagabonds Orchestra, and they played at the beautiful Greystone Gardens, which you see here. And I love the description. The camera is to blame for the three-cornered appearance. The dance floor is squared. They make sure to get that detail out there. But right there, this is where the band would play. And you can kind of see in the center photograph there, there's like a little gazebo there. That's where the band would play. But I love how the perimeter has chairs around it. And then people could just go out on this huge outdoor dance floor and dance to Fred Bergen's Vagabonds. Another great Goldkette unit. But you could dance inside the Greystone or you could dance outside. And pretty incredible to see that. But a lot of people have never known that about the Greystone Gardens in Detroit. But again, a great historical photo. Now, with it being Bix's birthday and Chauncey Morehouse's birthday, this is a Greystone photo that I want to share because this is the Greystone's birthday cake. So any of you that like to bake cakes out there or do any cooking, imagine this, the largest ever made, 1,250 pounds of deliciousness to be served to Greystonians at anniversary celebration Wednesday, March 19th. So that's only 8 days from now that we have the cake, but what a cake, 1,250 pounds. Oh my gosh. I would have loved to have seen that and tasted it as well. Again, lunchtime. So I think I'm getting everybody ready for dessert now if you haven't finished your lunch. So again, Goldkette was in charge of this. He always wanted things big and grand. So he wanted the largest birthday cake ever made. There we go. Probably a Guinness World Record back at that time in the 1920s for a cake like that. All right, let's see how we are here. Okay, so I think that's just about all the photos that I have here of the Goldkette band. So I know we've got just about 5 to 6 minutes left here, and I know that we've got everybody that's been watching and tuning in. And so I'm not sure if Iris is there and she'd want to come back. If there's any questions that anybody has for me, feel free to write them in the chat there. I'll answer them here for these last few minutes as we start to wrap up. But if Iris has any questions from anybody that is there in person, I believe watching, she can always hop on and ask me the question, and I'll gladly answer that if I know the answer for it. But I can if I want to recommend again, that I do have one more part that we technically could do on Gene Goldkette. And again, I'm honored to be asked to talk about Goldkette here with the Marshall County Historical Museum, and it means a lot to me because I've been doing this for 20 years now, and it's my passion, this music and his life and culture. Gene is one of those musicians with Chauncey and then the great Louis Bellson, Teddy Brown. There's a lot that I've done research on, and getting to share this information with everybody that's watching here, it is a treat for me. And so we've covered Gene's early life. We've covered a chunk of the middle of the life for the 1920s, but he did have a life in the 1930s all the way until he passed away in 1962. And so if that's something that we'd want to do, like the third part of the program, kind of the third and final part of Gene's life, I'd be more than happy to have another program ready to go for a future brown bag program here, where we can talk about Gene and you can see what he was doing in his later life, which that's the mystery that a lot of people don't know about. And I have a lot of information in there. I don't want to share a lot of it now because that would give away everything that'd be coming up. But there's a lot of really neat and exciting things about his life, including a kind of a resurrection of his career that he had in Detroit doing solo piano concerts, as well as an album that he made in 1959 called Dance Hits of the 1920s in Hi-Fi, where one of those musicians was none other than the great Doc Severinsen, who led the Tonight Show band with Johnny Carson. And I could tell that story in that program where I got to interview Doc Severinsen, and he told me about those days of recording with Goldkette in 1959. So again, very, very exciting. Yes, the comment there too, my band's performing at the Rees. Yeah, I'm still talking with them. I'm trying to get everything worked out where we can perform there at the opening of the Rees. If that happens, oh my gosh, everybody in Marshall County should come out, because you're going to hear that true 1920s music with the Greystone Monarchs. And thanks for that comment, Sandy, because I actually need to reach out to the Rees again. And if some of you are familiar with who own the Rees, please go into there and say, hey, hire the Greystone Monarchs for your grand opening. You need to have this group here. They do the Goldkette music. They do the true 1920s music. And what I say by that is there's a lot of groups out there that say they play 1920s, but it's actually a 1930s or 40s style that they do. My group is pure 1920s, and we're very proud of that. We've played the Bix Jazz Festival here for many years. And I love looking at the future for things I have coming up, and I'm not one that will dwell in the past saying something I did from whatever 20 years ago or something like that. But over the course of my career, I've been humbled and honored to receive recognition from the Detroit Jazz Festival for my work with the Goldkette Band. The Bix Beiderbecke Museum and Archives here in Davenport gave me an award for my true 1920s sound with the band, as well as my dedication to Bix and the history and the Goldkette Band. And so having that recognition has been wonderful, and I'm humbled when I receive it. But as I've always told people, I'm always looking forward as to what I can do in the future to continue keeping this music going and continue the history and the legacy in a very exciting way. And I'm going to do that for as long as I can do it. And if I have the support from everybody that's watching and can be there if we do perform at the Rees, that's what means the world to us, is when people hear our music, then they can share that with so many other people. And there's a neat project that I can't talk about, but hopefully in the future you will see it advertised. When you do, hopefully you can jump on it, because it'll be, all I can say is very limited. That's all I can say for the project. So, but again, a big thank you to Iris and the Marshall County Historical Museum and the Society. And again, a big thank you to everybody that has been watching today. If things can work out, possibly for a future brown bag program, I may actually come to Plymouth and do it in person, because fortunately, round of applause, great, we're coming out of COVID and things are opening up, which is wonderful. And so if we can try to work something out like that next time, yeah, we'll try to definitely make that a reality, because I would love to come and be in Plymouth. And if it works possibly for this fall, where I am performing at the Rees, that may work out really good if I'm in town to do a brown bag lunch when I'm there or talk about Goldkette. So yes, Rob, I believe Iris does post these recordings. So just watch if you're not a friend of the Marshall County Historical page on Facebook or something like that, please join them. And as you put theirs on the YouTube channel, So follow them there, but support the museum any way you can there. And I believe if you do visit the museum, they have the key to the Greystone Ballroom there. So I know when I'm coming back, I would like to see that again. I got to see it many years ago, and it's like, oh my gosh, wow. Yeah, any other questions or comments from anybody? But Iris, I mean, if Iris wants to come back on, she can. I know we're already at the 1 o'clock hour, so I've been talking for an hour here already. It's noontime here in Davenport, and I'm getting ready to celebrate Chauncey's birthday by spinning some records on my turntable downstairs, as well as one on my Victrola. Have the true sound to celebrate Chauncey's birthday. But feel free to put any comments or questions if anybody has it. Otherwise, we'll let Iris come back on, hopefully here in a second, and she can close out the program and say anything about the society. And if there's a way that anybody wants to give a donation to the society as well, I'm sure they're always welcoming donations to come into the society there. So thank you, everybody. Oh, thanks for those comments. That's super nice. Thank you, Sandy, and thank you, Rob. So again, having a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do it again for that third part on the later part of Goldkette's life. But there's Iris, so I'll let her hop on the mic and close out the program here.